Hello and welcome. It's another glorious Sunday here on Skeptic Haven. I am your host, Rion, and tonight our call-in show, Let's Talk. My special guest will be Secular Rarity, and together we will be asking the exciting question, what evidence do you have that God exists? On this channel, we enjoy having thought-provoking conversations, not only with our callers, but our live audience as well. We invite you to call us at 984-789-4787 and tell us how you know there is a God. We look forward to hearing from you. So get ready to dial in, share your perspectives, and enrich our conversation. And we'll be right back in just a moment.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
I know, I just get a little groovy when I hear that. Well, welcome back. Yeah, I feel it in my bones, Secular Rarity.
Yeah.
And I have to just say to our audience that for being a Secular Rarity, you're pretty easy to find. You are
I am.
around town.
Yeah, I am. I'm a
Getting
lot
around
more.
town.
I'm a lot more common, unfortunately. And as we all know, it's the rarer things that are more phone stock. Honestly, it's really a. It's yeah. I know it's a bad thing, honestly. But
You're just the inflation is going to be like
That's
out
right.
of this world
That's
after
right.
this call-in
I mean,
show.
it's true. 10 years ago, a singular secular rarity was at least worth, three of the average atheists out there. But these days, honestly, I'm not even sure. It could be down to half. It could be down to half. So
How many
bad.
shroot bucks is one Secular Rarity coin? Like how many?
It's
like what is the conversion rate? Do we?
Yeah, it's probably extremely high because the value is so low, and like you have to get like thousands and thousands and thousands of them to make it worthwhile to anything. But it's okay.
You are priceless.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And don't worry, I cry off camera before I go to bed anyway, folks. So you won't have to worry about it.
Okay. Well, maybe tonight proof of God will be just as easy as finding you online. Maybe that's just how it will be tonight. The proof will be evident for us. Like I do have to say, I did say a little prayer beforehand, like before you guys came on. Yeah, to Satan.
Oh.
So we're gonna see. Yeah, so we're gonna see
Sweet.
if my prayers come true.
Good.
So yeah, there's a lot to be foretold. I could prophesy tonight, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
About like some of these calls that could
like
also be interesting.
I like that. I would love to have fulfilled prophecy tonight. I think that's, it's, I think that fulfilled prophecy is one of those things that is, so ubiquitous in our history as a people. I mean, it's just everywhere. You can't take a step without finding, some totally accurate prophecies in the, oh wait, no, hold up. Oh no, wait, never mind. No, I'm sorry. I was thinking of something. I was thinking of something else. Yeah, the prophecies all failed. Yeah.
But the prophetess, she's a winner.
That's right.
All you have to do is give me your money, and I promise you it is going to come true.
That's right.
So tonight we are asking our friends, our guests in the audience here who are chatting with us, if you have evidence of a God. And actually, I probably should ask our audience a question. Don't forget to hit that like and make sure you share, do all the button pushings that you're supposed to be a good little atheist and push all the buttons. But I'd like to ask you all, if you believe in God, press 1. If you do not believe in God, I'd like to see a 2 out there. So which is it? Press 1 if you believe in God, or 2 if no. What would you press, Secular Rarity? What would
2.
you be pressing?
Yeah,
2.
For sure.
2.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm a 2 myself. I mean, I'm still kind of like, hey, it's whatever. I'm not really that bothered, but until God or goddess or whatever presents me with something, kind of smacks me on my face with an appendage of some sort, maybe, I mean, yes. I'm not going to mention a particular, right.
Not anything particular, but
I'm not going to mention the particulars, but just something would be enough proof for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see a 1.5. I'm seeing now. What is a 1.5? I wonder.
I don't know, but hopefully that person who put 1.5 will see the call-in number and speak with us today, because that sounds super interesting. Person 1.5, whoever you are.
Yeah. 1.5, please. Can you
Yeah.
explain what that means? Let me give you all our number again if you'd like to call in. We don't bite hard. Haha, old joke. So the number here is 984-789-4787, and you can present us with your evidence or your proof, what have you, if there is a God, or maybe you think there's more than one God. That's always a possibility too. That's fine. I'm down with it. I mean, if you're gonna have one, I kind of feel like having 20 is just, it's really not that big of a deal.
The gods,
it's like a gateway god.
Right. First thing you do is you're praying to Yahweh. Next thing you know, you're just believing in all the pagan gods too. It's
right.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean,
I really liked the gods of the older days, before we condense them all into a single one. And I think one of the biggest reasons that I like that is because oftentimes it ends up being really funny, because like this one god who apparently, controls all the stars in the heavens also pays attention to grass, which is like, how did that shake out? Like, was everybody just like, were all the gods sitting around like a cosmic table or something? They were like, hey, what do you like? You like goats? Yeah, we'll give you the goats, but hey, somebody has to take the wildflowers, man. It's got to be you. You got to take the wildflowers too. You care about goats, wildflowers. That's your whole thing. So I don't know how that was decided.
That did say he watches the birds too. I'm pretty sure like he knows the hairs on your head.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information that God has about me.
This is an interesting thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, yet it seems like I really don't know any personal information about him other than what people have told me, but he's not really having those conversations with me.
And to know someone so intimately, to know the hairs on their head, you would think, that they would have to know you pretty well. But this thought popped into my mind. Do you think God knows the amount of hairs on our butt, or is it just our head? Do you think it's like the whole body, or do you think it's like it's just this portion of the body? God knows all these hairs, but has no clue about what's going on with your forearm. Like, it's just lost.
That's a really good question, though. Very thought-provoking. That's kind of intriguing me, because I feel like if he knows what's on your head, why wouldn't he know the rest? But then maybe that's just kind of redundant. Like God's like, come on, now you're being too much. Like, I don't need to count everything, because like one particular area is plenty. Like that's just going to be plenty. Sorry, God.
God's like, whoa, humans, I can't do it all for you. You're going to have to at least
sheesh. Like, now you want me to count the hair on your knuckle? Like, stop. You humans are just too much with your need of evidence. I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Okay. So what do we have here? God gets really irritated by the people who keep waxing. He keeps having to update his wow. Yeah, I think that there is a possibility that we are frustrating God, and that could be the reason he's not getting back to us.
Yeah. And that makes sense, honestly, because, a lot of times in the past, it's been pretty clear, I think, from biblical stories, that God doesn't seem too sure about what he's doing. Like, he's not positive about like what's going to happen next, which is weird, because then normally
like that God.
Oh yeah. It makes more sense, but it's just the fact that like normally that stuff happens, and then it's like a paragraph or two later, and somebody's like, no, actually God knows everything. But it's like, there's a point where he's walking around the Garden of Eden with the only human beings he has created in all of existence. Yeah. And he's just like, hey, where you guys go? Adam?
Right.
Adam? Why?
Remember when he's like talking to Cain, isn't he? Didn't he ask like Cain like where he was or something?
Yes.
He's like, bro, you're not my dad. Like, chill.
It's very, very strange. And again, though, I agree with you. It makes so much more sense if you're saying, hey, actually, all of this stuff is actually happening because this deity exists, but it's just a bumbling idiot. It's just really bad at trying to do any of the things it wants to do, and just like stumbles around and, steps onto the front part of a rake and then gets smacked in the face. And then that leads to genocide and slavery or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's still stupid because we still have to we still actually have to have the evidence for the God thing, but it's at least more consistent. And I like that.
Right. To me, I can like rationalize that sometimes like, hey, God loses. God, I mean, there's a few times where God loses in the Bible, and that's kind of like, hey, you win some, you lose some. And that to me kind of makes more sense. He's not the trace omnis. I don't know what you really call it. I just say it like that because it's just easier for me because I have a terrible time remembering all the damn big words. But it seems to me that when he's those three omnipotent things, that he's kind of more relatable. Like, oh, God had a bad day, you know?
Yeah.
Poor God. Like, maybe we should say a prayer for God.
Dear God, I hope you stop fucking up so much. Thank you.
Please and thank you. I hope you have a better day.
Maybe
like when you pray for God, you're supposed to pray to Satan.
Oh, maybe like when it's, you got to even it out. That's funny.
Maybe.
My uncle used to work at a radio station, and he took us around, the station one day when we were up there visiting, and we get to his desk finally, and sitting on his desk is a little baby Jesus in the little little hay. Okay, the entire rest of that scene wasn't there, but it was little baby Jesus. Then we've got a little statue of like Shiva, and then we've got like he had like a little Buddha statue, and I honestly think he had one of those like mini tchotchkes of like a Quran, so it was just like this tiny little keychain thing that was just like Quran. And we asked him, we were like, dude, why do you have all this? And he goes, I don't know, just covering all the bases. Just one of them's bound to be right, don't you think?
Yeah. But I think that kind of proves the point. Like, if you're not really sure, like, which is the right, I mean, there's thousands of religions, or at least there's maybe even a few major Abrahamic religions, but from them, oh my gosh, the amount of different opinions, everybody's just has an opinion of the next guy of the next, and that's just kind of how it piles on.
Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
correct?
And there's and some, not every single one of them, obviously, and not every single, understanding, of course, but the vast majority of these belief systems are contradictory to each other. It's not possible for them to both be the case. And for some reason, and at least in some instances, like, let's take the Quran. The Quran is very explicit that it is not the Jewish God. It is not the Christian God.
See, that's the question that okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
you,
let's talk about I've been
please.
asking this question and nobody answers me. I'm
let's
like,
talk.
Is the God of the Quran the Jewish God, or is it El, like the old God, or is it a completely different God that I've never even heard of?
Allah, as represented in the Quran, is basically co-opting all the stuff behind it. So we're very confident in an academic scholarly sense, right? That Islam is definitely something that pulls from the other Abrahamic faiths. It's very, very obvious, right? There's even a mention. There's even a mention that like, of Jesus, and basically the Quran is like, no, Jesus wasn't actually the son of God, and he didn't actually die. Like Muhammad goes and talks to him at some point, and so what they do, what the Islamic texts lay out, is the same narrative that many, many other religions love to do. And that is, hey, what y'all were talking about is actually our guy, and you just fucked up. You just got it all wrong. But here's where I think the value is in saying that Allah is a different God. And the reason that's the case is because it is very, very explicit about talking how the Jews are flat out wrong, and the God that they are worshiping is incorrect. They are just absolutely, abhorrently, can never, ever fix it. They are wrong. And so the Quran actually distinguishes Allah in a way that does really, at the end of the day, say, no, our God is different. You're incorrect, and the God that you think you know about is actually our God and you just got it wrong. But the way that they lay out the attributes of Allah in the Quran are specifically trying to distinguish itself from the Jews and Christians. And that's why they have so many verses that are so genocidal. Like there's literally a verse in the Quran that says at the last of days, even the rocks and trees will start telling the Muslims that there is a Jew behind them trying to hide themselves so that they don't get slaughtered by the Muslims. Oh, it's very, very intense because Islam is the last revelation. All of the revelations in the past, again, they go back and they co-opt everything. And they say, Abraham got a revelation, and then the Jews fucked it up. And Jesus got a revelation, and then the Christians fucked it up. Muhammad got the last one, and it's right. And it's different from yours. So I definitely say the God that is presented in the Bible, which in and of itself has multiple versions of God, right? Because the Christian version
that's a combination of
absolutely like, and again, this is how we know about the Torah and stuff. This is why this is not taken seriously that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. It's very obvious that there are people that have differing opinions about the attributes of their God. And again, just like we could make the argument that all the things that we talk about when it comes to aliens have enough similarity that they're the same thing. Fine, you can make that argument, but I don't feel like it's really engaging with the material well, because
it's dishonest, I think.
Yeah, because there are people out there who straight up swear there are like 7 different species of aliens that are known about and cataloged. And so it's like, you can't tell me that like the Greys and this like, other weird Martian thing, like they're not the same. They have elements that are similar, of course, because all of these supernatural and poorly evidenced claims have similarities. But at the end of the day, the God that is worshipped in the ancient Jewish texts versus the ancient Christian texts versus the ancient Islamic texts, they really are trying to distinguish themselves, I think. And that's why I say that it's not fair to just say, oh, well, actually Muslims and Christians were talking about the same thing, because your book says otherwise. Your book is very clear about that. So,
which is so strange to me to make that claim that like they got the revelation, but the rest of it they got wrong. But the revelation, I'm guessing is correct.
Yes. Yes.
Again, that to me is just
there is a common belief in Islam as well. Again, I don't know that this is explicitly in the Quran or the Hadiths, but there is a common understanding that when somebody becomes a Muslim, right? Let's say me, ex-Christian, currently an atheist. If I said my Shahada and became a Muslim tomorrow, I didn't convert, I reverted. I came back to the faith because we are all born Muslim. We are all born Islamic.
Oh, no, that's what they think.
Yes, that is definitely a common understanding.
Ooh, okay.
Yes,
I don't like that.
It's creepy. I know. It's very upsetting. And again, I think, I think when we do says that, I think when we do say stuff like that, we're just not really engaging honestly with it. And I just feel like it does a disservice, I think, to the believer. And the reason I harp on that stuff so much is because that was what kept me believing things for so long, was because I had so fully taken in the thought stopping techniques. And so when somebody came up to me who was a Hindu and said, hey man, what you're saying doesn't really work with what I'm saying. Maybe one of us has a problem here. My response was easy because no response was necessary. Hey, you believe in God, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, cool, me too. God took care of it. Like, why are you concerned? The answer is already figured out in the heavens. We don't actually need any answers right now. Look at us silly ants trying to figure out what God's got going on. Come on, that's silly. But that's a shitty argument. That's a terrible argument.
Yes, it is. It's very terrible. It kind of just reminds me of like I guess that's kind of like a silly illustration here, but like when a child asks a parent why, and it's just because I said so, like
Yeah.
never really giving
Yeah.
the reason as to why you just can't, or whatever the issue is. And that's just not an answer. Reason with me, and maybe that I can understand, but you just telling me it's so doesn't really engage me. It doesn't help me critically think
Right.
at all. It just seems like you're pushing me back into this circular logic. And I can tell you all, you've probably heard me bang on about this several times, but like as far as my personal journey out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, no one I promise you, as many times as I went door to door, nobody ever engaged with me in real, genuine conversations.
Yeah.
So I had this grandiose like idea that I knew the Bible like inside and out because I knew a couple scriptures on like the back of my hand. Like, okay, like big whoop. But to me, engaging with other people, I always seemed to be the one who was more knowledgeable
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because most other people, most Christians really don't know their Bible. I
Oh
know
yeah,
my
most
Bible
religious
better
people for sure.
now. Yeah, but I can say I never had a genuine conversation with somebody who would dialogue with me, who got me thinking.
Yeah.
And I had all these questions. So I guarantee if somebody would have just given me the opportunity, like if I had you or somebody else to ask me these questions years ago, I honestly think that I would have been able to critically think my way out
Yeah.
because I'd always wanted those answers. I was searching for them, but I
Yeah.
continuously got that again, that shut down the critical thinking and
Mm-hmm.
back to that circular reasoning.
Yeah.
And, these are the kind of conversations that really are kind of healing for
Mhm.
me because I'm just kind of scratching that itch that I had for 40
Right.
years. And
Right. Right.
now I'm
You
like,
could never get. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I
now I'm
and
just
I
scratching away.
I was in this boat of, I had just accepted these things again so easily with those very poor arguments that, again, like the reason that fallacies work, people, and the reason that we have to pay attention to them is because they feel like they work. They feel like
Yes.
they work and you don't recognize it. And so if you just take the argument at face value and you don't put any other thought into it, well, like, yeah, like you are gonna realize that like you don't really have any good justification. And so what ended up happening for me is when I was finally having these types of discussions in this context. Now, sit me down as a 14-year-old, and I grant I probably pissed off most of my friends, but sit me down as a 14-year-old and have some in-depth conversation about the history of the United States government and like why that brings us to the politics of today and the divisions between left. Like, oh my gosh, I would do it all freaking day. I loved that type of discussion. I was in debate. I did forensic stuff, public speaking of all kinds.
That's
And it wasn't
awesome.
until I finally was like, you know what? What is this? I hear this guy is talking about something, this Hitchens, whatever, dude. What the hell is that? And so when I
What's a
finally
Hitchens?
started going into that stuff, everything fell away so quickly. And one of the reasons that it all fell away so quickly was because I didn't have anything to back them up. Somebody finally had a response to, hey, but if God takes care of everything, then like, what's even the point? If everything in life is already taken care of because God got it, what are we even doing sitting here trying to figure out like whether we're following it or not? Why does it matter?
Right.
If God
It's always his
really,
plan.
right, you can't possibly have anything wrong in that worldview. There's nothing fantastic in that worldview because every little thing at the end of the day, you have to accept God wanted it that way. And so once somebody finally did that to me and was like, hey man, I don't think that works as well as you think, I was like, oh snap. And that the acceptance of those claims drifted away. But that didn't instantly lead me to the positions that I have now on everything. I take a harder stance on the existence of God than a lot of people do. I say that every single version of a deity or a supernatural thing I have ever heard of fails. Every single one. Does that mean categorically that there, could possibly be some description out there that works. Yeah, I guess maybe. That seems kind of dumb for me to just like arbitrarily cut that potential off. But at the same time, the overwhelming evidence definitely seems to be pointing in the direction of all of this is garbage, because every single one of them, I take the stance, every single one of those has been proven incorrect. They have been proven false. If like you said earlier, if your God is all omni, your God doesn't exist. Period. It's easy.
Yeah, it does. It can't make sense. And Phil, thank you for your super sticker. We appreciate you, Phil. And I guess this is a good point just to kind of tell everybody about maybe the other channels and whatnot that we have, because we have so many quality programs that we run here. And I just want to also thank everybody backstage, like the producers, Kat, Wes, Phil. I'm sorry if I don't name everybody, but I'm just going to mention our other shows that we have here. And please call in if you'd like to give us evidence of God. But don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. We have Secular Soapbox on Wednesdays. Thursdays, it's the Sunny Spot. Saturday, we have the Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk. Obviously, here we are talking on Sunday, asking for the evidence. Show me the evidence for your God or your gods. And we'd love to hear it. I believe Phil, since I just saw your name and it's making me think of it, you said we have a poll. If you could bring up that poll, I would love to see what it says. Do you want to read that for us?
Yeah. So
can you see?
Oh yeah. But honestly, if I couldn't, I wouldn't have said anything. I'd have just pretended like I knew
sure.
it, and just waited for you to be like, okay, maybe you got a different poll.
Wait, hold on.
Okay. So, is the Bible itself evidence for God, even if not sufficient as a single source? Ooh,
wow. So we only got 4% yes.
I know.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think this is where we have to be really pedantic, right? We have to be, because I think in some instances I would answer this question yes, and in some instances I would answer this question no. If what we're considering as evidence is a very specific understanding of a body of facts that positively indicates or is exclusively concordant with a single conclusion, then no. It does not count under that understanding. If we're taking the definition of evidence as being any argument, data, anything that could tip the scale on one side or the other, well then sure. But then at that point, it's like, I feel like we're watering down the definition of evidence to such a level that it just doesn't become useful anymore. And that's kind of the same argument that I have with like faith and trust. If at the end of the day, you really mean that faith is just trust, then okay, I guess I have faith and stuff. But I just feel like the idea that we would try to break down the understanding of those words to a meaningless sense like that, it just doesn't seem valuable. It seems like there's a reason why we have different words and different understandings. So yeah, again, in some instances, if we're just taking that really, really general view of the term evidence, then yes, I guess it would count. But because I take that much stricter sense, hell no. And I think it's worth just saying that real quick to your interlocutor. Just if you're talking to a theist and they say, well, evidence this or that, just say, hey, look, this is how I use that term evidence. So maybe we can agree on using a different term, or maybe we just recognize that we're both using the term differently. And when trying to rebut the other's argument, we just make sure that we understand that their definition is different and try to rebut that definition.
Right. Because sometimes you're not even talking about you're not even on the same playing field. So you got to make sure that I get exactly what you're saying. That's a really good point. It looks like we have a call. Oh my gosh. So I don't know what to think about the whole Satan thing, because I did kind of pray for no calls. So I guess maybe there is a God. I don't know. That's a possibility. Okay, it looks like it is that dude from Florida.
All right.
Yeah,
There are
that's my
pantheists.
pronoun.
Hi. Awesome. Thank you for
Hi, how are
calling.
you?
Those aren't
I'm
pronouns.
doing-
I mean, I'll call
I'm
you that dude, Granny, but those aren't pronouns. You recognize that, right? Like, you know parts of speech.
No, I'm not really good at book learning too much.
You
but
don't know about grammar?
I don't really understand that. No, not really.
Okay. I think that's surprising and disingenuous, but what do you want to talk about, man?
I was calling mostly about religion. I'm kind of on the fence. One of you is a believer and the other one is an atheist. Is that what I'm getting here?
Both non-believers.
I'm a non-believer.
Okay, so we're going double atheist on this.
Sure.
Double atheist, baby.
I mean, you're admittedly bad with grammar, so I guess if that's the terminology that works best for you, we'll accept it.
Well, yeah, you're doubling up on atheism. I believe that works, doesn't it?
I don't think so, but that's okay. There are two atheists here that are happy to speak with you if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'd love to know what you believe.
Atheist.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not an atheist. I don't believe in, Jesus. It's kind of like one of those things, like you got to cross that bridge when you get there type of deal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No.
All right.
Are you saying you're going to withhold judgment until you die and go see heaven?
No, I'm not saying that whatsoever, dude. I'm saying, you live your life as a decent person. Like, who are you going to trust, right? Somebody that has the incentive to be good, or somebody that's just good out of the will of being good and doesn't believe that there's something at the end.
The second one.
I think that's more genuine.
Right?
The second one is more, it's more genuine. Yeah. You're doing it out of the goodness of wanting to not cause harm on somebody with somebody.
Right. Yeah. And if you believe that you're living this life for some, higher entity to judge you, and so you're not going to go, graping and, robbing and stealing and killing. I believe that makes you a terrible person.
Okay. I'm not sure Rion and I have really much. There doesn't seem to be much meat on this bone here. So I guess maybe is there a question you have, or do you have you heard Rion and I say something in the past that you think is particularly incorrect? Because right now it just sounds like what you're saying is just kind of very general and mundane stuff that, honestly, Rion and I would agree with, but it doesn't seem to have just much substance to it, I guess is what I'm concerned about.
Oh, okay. Well, you would it concerns you. Okay. So let me ask you this, right? So in the story of the Bible, so if you're atheist and you've also studied religion a little bit, right? What do you think that the 3-day revival was with Jesus? Because I have an interesting theory on that.
Cool. Let's just hear your theory.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because I don't really have I don't think about it too much. I'd like to know, was there dead bodies involved? Because that
was there a zombie horde? Was there a zombie horde that Mike Winger ultimately got fired from his job for saying he didn't believe in? Was there that zombie, or was that Kona? That might have been Kona. It doesn't matter.
I believe that it was a euphemism. I believe that
I think you mean metaphor, but again, your grammar is terrible. So
thank you.
That's okay. I'm happy to help.
I believe that he was murdered by his government for being a radical. I believe Jesus was a real man, but I believe he was murdered by his government for being a radical. And the
what's his government?
quote unquote resurrection story was it took 3 days for his word to spread amongst the villages and for his fucking word to actually spread to people, which was the indoctrination of Christianity.
Okay.
Well, I definitely think that there's a indoctrination when it comes to Christianity. On that, we're on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess this isn't. This is just my opinion on this, man. I kind of feel like this isn't valuable for you to be spending too much time thinking about, because if you already don't accept the claim, then
I don't
like
write books and shit about it, dude. I'm not like,
why does it matter about what the story actually is? You know, it just seems like you could be doing more important things with your thinking.
You seem kind of like a stuck-up prick, dude, a little bit.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, you got
I'll
glory
accept that.
here,
It's
don't get me
just
wrong, but
it's really it's disrespectful to the people here who both create the show and put on the show. If you're calling in to just say worthless like pabulum, like go do that on your own time.
It's not worthless. I'm adding to the conversation. Have you never done a fucking radio show in your life?
I don't feel like you. I've actually been doing this for quite a while, not just today, but that's up to, yeah, in about 2 minutes it'll be up to like 8 hours. So but yeah, I just put you on mute, caller, because I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with this. And I guess if you want to go masturbate, like go do that on your own time, but don't waste Ryan's journey. Don't fuck with all of our people in the side chat and just pretend like you're doing anything of value. Like you're not. And it's frustrating because honestly, I don't feel like you're being very genuine. And I've had this conversation with literally thousands of people, and most of it is recorded. So like I'm happy to start all over if you want. I'll wipe the slate clean. I'll sit back. We'll just start all over if that's what you want to do. But if you're going to keep going down the same route of worthless conversation, I think we're better off just Rion and I talking to each other. Like, honestly. So I'll leave it up to you. I mean, it's not my show. I'm just here as a co-pilot. So I'm just here to have fun and provide some entertainment for the people in this great community who work very hard. So, you know, but yeah, what do you want to do here? You want to try to start all over again and maybe we can do something of value?
Right,
or
are your pronouns cunt and bitch boy? Because that's exactly what the fuck you're acting.
I love when people are so incapable of having a conversation that the only thing that they can do is to act like petulant children. And it's so funny because I genuinely believe this, okay? I could be wrong. Folks. I could be delusional. I honestly believe you're better than that, caller. You're better than this. You're better than what you've presented for the last 8 minutes. And it is disrespectful. It is disrespectful to somebody like Wes or Phil or Kat who have spent hours building this. Everything you've said tonight is you sitting in your fucking house jerking yourself off. And I'm glad that you do that. Like, congrats. That's awesome. But if you genuinely are interested in this conversation, maybe go take 5 seconds to Google anything. Like anything whatsoever. I literally don't care. You could just go Google like whether or not dogs have 4 legs. Just anything. And then please call back in later on. Hey, maybe try when it's not me, you know? Maybe I am just a prick and a cunt and a piece of shit.
No.
It's highly possible, caller. But again, I think what you've done here tonight is disrespectful not only to all of the people working on this show, but you. I think it's disrespectful to you. Like you're letting yourself down. So that's my thoughts on it. And honestly, I'm done again. I know this is you're in charge, Rion, but I'm sorry. I find it frustrating.
I like being in charge.
Yeah.
No, I get it because this is in many ways, this is, topics that we're discussing because I mean, for me, it's all about kind of sharpening my tools and my
Right.
wheelhouse, because I honestly am so far behind most people when it comes to like schools of thought,
Mhm.
fallacies. I mean, you
Yeah.
name it. I've never heard of some of this stuff before. Do you know how many
Right.
times I read a book and I've got to look up a damn word every other
Right.
freaking page, and how disheartening it is for me to have to do that and feel like I'm watching people just be able to understand concepts and just rattle on, and I'm still stuck on one word
Mhm.
trying to understand it because I was not given the opportunity to have these kinds of conversations. So like, I don't mind shooting the shit. Like, shooting the shit's fine, but I do enjoy this when it's educational, when it's
Yeah.
enlightening, when, like you said, when we can get to some meat. Like, I'm trying to eat. Girl likes her yum yums. So, so I like to have a full belly of the spirit and good conversation.
Yeah. And again, like, in
Sorry.
part, no problem. I mean, like, I get it. It's definitely different when you're not on these shows a lot, and I understand. Honestly, look, I'm happy to admit right here, right now, folks. Hey, SR, maybe a little bit hard. Okay, no problem. Like, I apologize, and I'm genuinely caller, because we caller dropped. So genuinely, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything to you, but I don't know how anybody as an adult is expected to sit there as somebody is blatantly disrespecting the years of work that a dozen and a half people have put in to get to a place like this. Like, you recognize that this conversation, as fluid and as, hey, we're not positive about stuff and we got stuff to figure, you recognize this conversation has lives on the line. Do you know that Iran just fucking killed another 5 fucking people? They did.
Yes.
They
Yes.
did. Like,
I watch it every day.
do,
Every day there's a few people they've
right.
just executed.
So to have this opportunity where you really do have a chance to engage in a meaningful conversation, it's so frustrating that people would choose instead. That's right. I'm a little bit hard. You got me.
I'm sorry.
No, that was good. No, that was good. And we need the levity. So,
Yeah, we
but
gotta.
to start off with this disingenuous comment about your pronouns are things that you blatantly know are not pronouns. Like, that is an attempt for you to get your bigotry platformed. That's what that is. It's you
like a
being
little dog
sick.
whistle, if you ask me.
Exactly.
A little dog
It'd be
whistle-ish.
like if at the bottom he just said like my pronouns are SS. You'd be like, oh, what a Nazi. Like, what an asshole, which I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying I really did. I felt like that was disingenuous from the beginning. And it is so frustrating when there are people out there, people I care about, people that matter to me, right? Like, how in the world do you feel good about yourself knowing all of the things that Rion has been through? And you're going to come on here and you're going to waste our time with this? This is ridiculous. Like, there's so much value in these conversations. And when
I
we
could
find
be learning from the great Colin God. I got the Colin God
right,
right next to me.
right. I mean, from when we are playing, I love this analogy. When we are playing a game of chess and a pigeon comes in and just starts shitting all over our board, we should absolutely not be okay with that. That's not okay. And again, like, I think the caller is better than that. I don't know if you're still watching or not. I don't know if you'll see this in the future. It doesn't matter, because I genuinely mean this. I really do believe you're better than that caller. And I believe you and I can have a really good conversation where we lay out our positions and we hash stuff out. I have evidence of doing that for years. And all I'm asking is just take a few seconds and come back and be genuine with us, please. Because I hate getting upset in these conversations because we don't make progress. We don't go anywhere. And now look at this. Now SR's all hot and bothered and, gonna have
the first
to.
impression was not a good impression.
That's
You know
fair.
what I'm saying? Hey, we don't mind you hot and bothered. We're getting you hard. We're getting you hot and
That's
bothered.
right,
We're hitting
that's
you with
right.
appendages. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen on this show tonight. It's a wild menagerie of things. Thank D&D. You are just the kindest. Thank you so much. Maybe that was God. Kind of sounded just as judgmental.
I like that. I like that, Dan.
Yeah. My pronouns are give me money, bitch. Since we're already demonetized. I mean,
Oh, probably. That's probably my fault. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, hey, at this point, let it loose.
Hey guys, did you know that Skeptic Haven has a Patreon? You can send them money regularly, even when SR comes on and demonetizes their channel.
Don't you want to give us your money?
Yes,
And that's the
do
thing.
it.
Like, if we were hate preachers, we could just get that money flowing. Sometimes I just feel so insignificant when I look at these like wild ass allegations that these hateful rhetoric guys just throw around, and unabashedly people just worship the ground that they walk on. And here we are, a little old internet, just trying to teach people and give people more education when it comes to the Bible, and we just kind of get pooped on a lot of times. A lot of pigeons on our game board.
And we do. We have a huge
said it.
We have a huge fight. We still have quite a lot. Like, as much as atheism is growing, y'all, as much as secularism is growing, like, we are still quite a minority worldwide. So
right. I mean, it's getting there. We've seen the Pew research, 2070. So I am hoping. I mean, that is my goal. That honestly, that's probably like
just to
one
make
of my
it
biggest goals.
just like to stay alive.
Y'all, I'm gonna be on death's door. Like, I'll be pushing like 90s, okay? But I'm telling you, if that's the one thing that I do in this life, I will be on my deathbed just waiting for the announcement. Christianity has sunken below 50%. They are now in the minority. Like, I'll be coming back from the dead. I'll be resurrected. Maybe that will be proof of God. Maybe that's our proof. I'm not sure. I guess
We
I
just
should
gotta wait.
Let me give the number again. You got to wait and see. Let me give you all the number again. If you would love to call our show, I'm sure you want to talk to Secular Rarity and I. I mean,
I will be less hot and bothered and less hard. If that, I will contain my hardness.
You don't got to do all that.
hey, girl. Afterwards, I got
you. Hey, baby. We're going to need a divine condom for that. The number for the show is 984-789-4787. We would love if you would give us a little cally poo. Tell us if you have any evidence, if there's something that you would like to discuss about God, if you have a question about, what it is that an atheist believes, even though atheists really don't believe anything. I know I don't believe in crap. But hey, we're here to have these conversations, and maybe we can,
I think we can. I think we can. Honestly, I really do. I think we can. I've woosawed a little bit, folks. I promise. Not just going to be biting people's heads off. But I gotta say this, just because Christy said this earlier today, and I do really like it, and I think it's worth it. Like, you don't owe anybody, you being a punching bag for them. You just don't. And if you're engaging with somebody who is very much seemingly not engaging, honestly, folks, you don't have to put yourself through that. Like, you absolutely have the right to walk away. So
protect yourself, protect your interest. I tell people all the time, like, one of the things that I never learned were boundaries. Like, when you're in a high control religion,
absolutely,
you think that you have boundaries because everything's a no, right? Like, sex is a no, drinking, like, so you think boundaries because I can say the word no, but that actually doesn't like tell you how to get through those situations.
Right.
You end up putting yourself in positions. At least I found myself in positions where no is not going to work.
Right.
You need to have that critical thinking ability to kind of talk yourself through stuff with people, and to know when something doesn't feel right, that you can say no, that you're uncomfortable. But when you have these people in positions of authority, your ability to say no it's non-existent because they override you. So
Right.
you don't have those boundaries set. If anything, you probably have less boundaries than most people, because especially for a woman, any man in my congregation could really give me a command,
Right.
and that would be for me to just obey, because he really is like the head.
Right.
So boundaries are like, please set boundaries for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Learn what you're comfortable with and not, and protect your interests.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, it is by design in those high control spaces. It is purposefully set up that way so that you don't understand when your boundaries are being violated, because basically your boundaries are going to be violated. So
right. Well, that's the thing about these organized religions and their indoctrination. They teach people how to be these aggressors. They teach men how to be the aggressors, to be the authority, and they teach women how to, and this sounds harsh, but how to become victims, right? To be the perpetual victim and to forgive, right? Because to be a godly woman, you're supposed to forgive 70 times 7 or whatever, turn the other cheek. Like, there's so many scriptures where you're just supposed to acquiesce. And, because the sin is between that person and God, not you. They didn't harm you. Why can't you forgive? What's wrong with you? Like, they sinned against God and God's forgiven them. So now what's your deal?
Yeah. They beat you, but it's really God who they offended. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, well, I was going to ask you, how does an atheist make the decision between right and wrong? But we have a call, so why don't I pull the caller up?
Yeah,
and
let's
then
take
maybe
a call
we'll
and
get
we
to
can go
that
back
question. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna push some buttons here. Let's hope that she does the right thing. Hello, caller. Are you from Los Angeles? What you got for us? You're on the air with Secular Rarity and I.
This is Phil from Backstage. I'm going to argue with you guys.
Hey, Phil.
Hi, Phil from Backstage. That sounds a little creepy, but thanks for calling.
He's watching us.
It does, yeah. I'm behind
Always
SR's
watching.
wall right there. So here's the thing. I'm very, well, no, I'm not puzzled. I'm one of those people on that. Is the Bible evidence? Yes. I'm a yes person. And I was surprised to see the number that low.
Sure.
I guess maybe not. Maybe I didn't know what to expect, but I want to pursue this a little bit, because I think I'm in the minority among atheists that it is evidence. I wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, please. I'm curious about what you mean.
I'm sorry, say again?
I just said, yeah, I'd love to hear what you mean by evidence for God. I'd love to hear it.
Well, the one thing that caught my ear was, SR, when you said that, does it need to tip the scale? And I think that's too high a standard. And I want to be a little fair to the theists out there who are looking at the Bible as evidence. I mean, okay, let's just get into it. When we're trying to figure out if something is true or correct, we have limited ability we have what we have in terms of how to make a judgment. The Bible, the fact that it exists, to me, is a piece of evidence. It is something. It is not a strong piece of evidence, I don't think, but I believe that it is evidence. Now, we can go back and say, if a supernatural God existed, did a Bible have to exist? Of course, no. Mm-hmm. But if it did exist, if it didn't exist, I mean, it seems like it would be a reasonable thing to sort of throw into the queue. It's like if we're trying to figure out something in archaeology and we find one toe, it's a piece. It's not it's not much to work on, but it's a piece, and it really belongs in the evidence queue.
So real quick, Phil, it sounds like to me you're taking that much more broader definition of evidence in general, right? Not the one that it says, is very, very specific about what counts as evidence, because under that definition of evidence of the, body of facts that is exclusively concordant with or positively indicative of a single conclusion, there's no such thing as good or bad evidence. there either is something, there is data that fits that criteria or it doesn't, right? But if you take that broader sense of evidence, right, which it sounds like to me you're taking, I guess the tip the scale wasn't, the right phraseology there. Just anything essentially that could be put on one side over the other. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't have to, the evidence in that broad sense doesn't have to convince you. It doesn't even have to move you in any direction. It's just the simple fact that at the end of the day, I have a book that says A is correct. And on this side, I have a book that says B is correct. Those books are evidence for A and B in that broad sense. Does that kind of ring a little bit more true with you, or you still think we're off here?
Well, when you said that it has to move you in a direction, I think it does have to move you.
Okay.
It doesn't have to move you a lot. I think of belief as a scale of 1 to 100, or 1 to 99, actually. So if you have a piece of evidence, if you have a piece of something that indicates something else, that is evidence. Now, obviously, the fact that it indicates something else would tend to put you higher on that scale. So when you hit 51%, you become positive. You think this thing is more likely than not to be correct. But if a piece of evidence brings you from like 12 to 13, that's fine. It is still evidence. It is weak evidence. And I see a big gap in people discussing the Bible, because on the theist side, to them, it's just like, it's enough to take you from essentially completely agnostic all the way to 99. And as an atheist, I think it's enough to take you from like 1 to maybe 4 or something like that.
So this is interesting.
I think we go ahead.
Well, it almost sounds like to me you're kind of conflating a little bit of both of those different definitions into the same understanding. That it almost sounds like to me that you're trying to have both the side of just any piece of data whatsoever so that we can include the most broadest and weakest of evidence, but also you're saying that the evidence still has to be something that is exclusively concordant with something, because you're saying that the evidence should be something that moves you in one direction or the other. And I think you can, I'm trying to come up with a good example that would be really, really, easy to see, but I think we can have evidence that doesn't change our position about something, right? Like if we look at, let's say we look at an empty box and there's a hole in the box. Okay. That could give us evidence that something came out, right? And so one person could say, oh, well, that makes me think it could be a rat. And it's like, okay, but does it make you think it's a rat more than it makes you think it's a mouse? And it's like, no, but that still seems to me like evidence in that broad sense, even though it doesn't actually push us towards anything particular.
It's more a question of what conclusion or what how far is justifiable to go based on what you have. What I think, if you have something, and I think it's a mistake to not call something evidence if it is. Let's see if I can find an example now. If I say there is a God, and then I pick up a rock and say this rock is evidence of God, there's no connection there. Okay, the existence of the rock is just basically information. It's not evidence unless this thing implies that thing. Okay. So, and it doesn't have to imply it to the point of being conclusive and all that and overriding and all. It's sufficient all by itself. But it does have to somehow indicate it, if not weakly. Now we collect, and I'll go back to the archaeology sort of analogy or metaphor, that if we collect bones and whatnot from a zone, and we collect one and we find more over time and then more from different sites and stuff, these little tiny pieces of evidence that weren't all that significant of themselves, other than we've determined that we can tell that it's a hairy or a pig or something like that, but we don't know what type until we have sufficient evidence to believe that yes, it is. But I wouldn't say that finding that first toe or tooth or something doesn't belong in the evidential pile of information that rises to imply another thing.
This is interesting, Phil, and the reason I'm really interested in this, I think there's quite a lot of this where you and I are seemingly in a deep amount of agreement, but where I think some of the issue is, and again, like, believe me, I'm always willing to accept that it's me that has the the.
And I'm enjoying listening, just so y'all know.
Oh please! Please shut me up, Brian. I'm so sorry. Please just tell me to shut up.
I like this because I'm like, you're able to pull questions from him that I wouldn't have. Yeah. So please keep going.
Yeah. So
sharpen my tools.
I wonder if maybe where the issue is coming in, because again, I'm still not totally sure if you are kind of conflating the two different definitions and trying to put them into one, but maybe what the issue is actually more based on is the claim itself that the evidence that we're looking at, relates to, because it kind of sounds like you just said there, like you have this thing and it's not actually connected to this ultimate claim, so it doesn't count as evidence. But then there are these other things that do have a connection, but like are full of problems, and that still counts as evidence. And that's where I think maybe what's happening is we're thinking about two different claims as if they are the same claim, and we're accepting things that give us the weaker claim but don't necessarily give us the stronger claim. So for instance, the Bible is evidence that individuals in the past believed these things, but it is not evidence of those things.
Primarily, yes.
Right? And so but in that sense,
no, well, I
okay, no, please. No, please. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Because I think that might be where I have the issue. So
I agree that dominantly it is evidence of people who believed in the God or a deity, whatever.
Cool.
Even the Christian God, fine. But that's a bigger jump, and I think that's a rational jump, a justified jump.
Okay. Hang on real quick. Hang on. Sorry, Phil. Let's just make sure we're on the same page. So, would you say that the Bible is evidence of people believing that God exists in some form or fashion? And then next question, would you say that the Bible is evidence of God's existence?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
I would say yes
to both.
The scale of those two jumps are completely different. One's a very tiny jump. One's in the direction of God's existence. And that's as far as you can take it. Like I say, from like 1%, 3%, whatever various those opinions are, 1%, 2%. The fact that there are, I think that's really the only point I want to make.
No, and I think, like I said,
if we're going to have a conversation, I would also say, ask, me or the person you're talking to is, well, what is your definition of evidence? And
right,
and because words are usage, so.
For sure. And yeah,
what would you say? That it doesn't count as that. It can be completely dismissed as evidence.
What would you say is, and I know obviously this is always incredibly difficult, especially on the fly, especially with words that we just accept as just part of our lexicon. What would you say is the most succinct and all-encompassing definition of evidence that you can give us? Like I gave two. One is just essentially anything whatsoever that can be put on one side or the other that could potentially indicate any conclusion. And then the other one is that much stricter one of it has to be something that exclusively concordant with a single outcome or positively indicative of the single outcome. What would you say is your?
It's what I said before. I think you're inclusive thing is just way too high a standard. Like I said, if you have a thing and you're evaluating it and trying to figure out, is it evidence for A, B, or C, there has to be a reason that you link the two. It can be a logical reason, it can be a physical location reason, whatever, all sorts of things, all sorts of directions in science. There has to be a justified link. That doesn't have to be enough to justify that you actually believe the thing. That it doesn't create, it's not enough evidence to justify the belief in the God, but I see it as a small piece.
If there's a fallacy, if there's a problem with the structure of the argument, would you say that no longer counts as evidence?
Well, we're talking about a thing, not an argument. So
the argument is the Bible was written by people who sincerely believed and had these experiences. Therefore, it indicates that they are real. That would be the argument by using the Bible to justify.
That's a lot of trust.
Does that? Do you think that's a fair argument? Like that's what I always take that as, basically.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I'm concerned that people always mistake that for the scale of the jump, not the direction of the jump.
Yeah,
anyway, I want to kind of wrap this up because we're kind of going in circles. And
oh no, it was a great call though. Yeah, I really think it is, and I think there is more work to be done on this in a lot of different avenues. Honestly, Phil, have you ever heard that definition, that harder sense of evidence? Have you ever heard that definition before? Because I didn't come up with it.
No, I haven't. I'm more of a science guy, so
yeah.
I kind of work on the level of what do we have to work with, and we we make hypotheses, and then we look for evidence, large or small, and then over time, if the collective of the evidence goes to a degree that we consider something to be more likely than not, then we say, okay, if it's more likely than not.
Yeah.
I would look for logical fallacies and stuff in the analysis of what you're doing, but
right. I would definitely say, and I'm going to do this on my own too, because I like homework for myself. But I would say, Phil, try and see if you can find some individuals who are very much in that harder sense of evidence and really espouse it, because again, like that is not something at all that I came up with. I know I've heard Aaron Ross say that for at least the last 7 years of my life, and I know he didn't come up with it either. So like I don't know if you can go to like Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and find it. I'll see if I can find a reference to point you towards, because maybe that will help. I mean, I'm not saying that will change your view on anything, but maybe it'll just help codify where you see the problems are with that strict sense of evidence. So, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good call. So
sounds good. It's interesting because like I say, I'm in the minority on my side here.
Yeah.
And I would like to figure out have a better understanding as to why. Not that I'm going to change my mind on it.
Right.
But I'm certainly willing to challenge it. So.
Right. And just because I may be in the majority, for let's say this particular poll or other polls or anything, that doesn't mean jack shit, right? That's ad populum. It's not right just because we all say it is. So who knows, Phil? You could go spend, the next 2 hours reading something and then come back and just change everybody's mind.
You just went from just because it's my opinion to ad populum in the same sentence as I'm just teasing you.
That's all right. I've been going for hours now, so
you're running on steam, bro.
It's easy. Well,
thank you for calling in.
Yeah. Okay. Go take your other call. All right. Thanks for talking.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was intriguing.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye. Yeah, I think what I was maybe struggling with is like the whole saying if you found like a toe or whatever, that was some kind of evidence of something. I just feel like a document of opinion is evidence of the opinion, but not necessarily So sometimes those conversations I struggle with, because like I think that's the same thing where you need to get on the same level of understanding of where they are and whatnot. So
and again, I think if you are being, honest about this, you're okay with playing around a little bit with the definitions of words. Like you're okay with allowing somebody, the opportunity to say, hey, I have a different understanding of this term, and I want to talk about it from that perspective. In fact, I would say that's really where you find some of the best conversation, is when two people come together and one of them goes, hey, that's just not the way I use that word. Like, this is how I use it. And it's like, okay, that's a valid understanding of that word. Absolutely. I may not take that as the standard definition, but with that definition, okay, let's now play in this space. Let's now try to figure some stuff out. And again, also, I'm always a big fan of demonstrating that non-believers, atheists, agnostics, skeptics, just kind of as a whole, are not like, we just don't have a doctrine. We just don't all believe the same, text, and that's good, because we're actually it's metal against metal here. We're sharpening. We're understanding. We're getting better. And that is a completely different thing from almost every single religious system out there. That is not what they want. So, yeah, let's converse. Let's disagree.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can remember, like, that was the worst part of the indoctrination, is the repetitiveness.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it because it was the same conversations. It was the same topics over and over, like ad nauseum, but no new information added. It was just the same stuff, and I would just be in my head kind of screaming, like, why are we talking about this again? We just talked about this last week. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of other information that we could be discussing. And now that I've realized there's like so much more that I would have enjoyed learning about, like Asherah, etc. Like when angels used to be gods and then they became angels, because they're of monotheism and stuff like those are the kind of things that maybe would have actually kept me somewhere in the realm of Phil, and maybe thinking that it's some kind of evidence. I mean, I don't know who's to say, but I know at this point it's not doing anything for me. There's no movement down there.
Yeah, and no movement down there. We've been extremely dirty this whole time. So,
but a lot of appendages on the rise.
But real quick, because you said something, and I just want to add on to it, because I agree wholeheartedly. I think that type of understanding, of your religion is so much more valuable. Like I'm not the person that's trying to figure out ways for theists to keep believing, but for fuck's sake, y'all, like Dennis R. MacDonald's work with mimetic history.
Oh, I love him.
Is that not just poetry?
I bought his thing from
the massive. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He has so much incredible stuff. And it's like, when you see Christianity from that perspective, in my opinion, like listening to him lay out the interweavings of various ancient Greek poetry and philosophy, and showing these very, very clear echoes and stuff. It makes you sit there for a second as like a hardcore dickhead atheist like me, going, I don't know, this isn't so bad. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, I get that. That's nice. It's pretty. Like, yeah, it's so cool.
It's engaging. It's interesting to me. It's almost like to me, like, and this probably makes no sense to anybody else, but it's like taking us going back thousands of years, and we don't have Twitter, but we have people writing these letters and then or these poems or whatever, these stories, and somebody going, oh, okay, yeah, all right, tweet this, right? Like, they're just responding to each other, and they're combating each other, and it's just this really cool way of communication. It's just like the long distance way, and now we have it instantaneous. But I think it's so beautiful to see how these ideas grew and were expanded on by different cultures, right? The next culture picks it up and they're taking it, they're running with it, and they're adding a little bit of this spice and that spice, and that's dope. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I can see that part as being interesting, because I'm getting connected to their humanity, like to them trying to figure out life. And that I find, like, it connects me thousands of years, like because we're still doing it today.
And
So I
yes,
love it.
yes, and it's so cool because you get to again, you like you said, you get to hop in this time machine basically, and you get to go back 1,000 years to like, have you ever heard Dr. Josh Bowen talk about the letters that we've got, you know, from traders and stuff? There's a
Oh,
letter
yes,
that
yes,
we
yes.
have where it's like, it's just
Blood
this
tablets
wife
and
just straight up being like, hey, husband, when are you going to get back? We don't have enough wheat. Like, you need to come back now. And it's so cool because you're like, oh my gosh, 1,000 years ago, this is what
same stuff
people were
happening.
doing. Nothing's
Yeah.
changed. We're still people. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
I
where
love it.
there's some real value in this stuff. When you
Yeah.
go to the level of making this claim of saying only your story is true, everybody else got it wrong, and everybody's gonna get punished, and you should actually punish them yourself. Like, stop all that, because you're losing the beauty of it. You're losing the most interesting aspect of it, which shows that thread of humanity throughout all of us. That's the
Yes,
beauty.
that
That's
common
what's
thread.
cool.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the reason it would have kept me interested had I not been indoctrinated. Well, here I am, I'm still interested, so what am I talking about?
Hey, we're glad you're on our team, Rion. Honestly, you're very fierce. I am
Thank you.
scared for all those professing JWs, because when you get a hold of those arguments, it's just like tearing them to shreds. I mean, you know?
Oh, and you know, when you realize, like, I guess I never really thought about it until I had to break it down, how many of their doctrines are just based off of one scripture, or not even a scripture. Like, some of their terminology is not even in the Bible, but you don't see it that way because they have that authority over you. And you kind of realize, like, throughout the Bible, that all these dudes who were doing the writing and they're prophesying, the next guy just came along and corrected them and threw his
Yes.
stuff in there. He
Yes.
either built on it, or he was like, oh, well, that
I
prophecy
love
didn't
that
come
stuff.
true because A, B, C, and D,
Right.
but now it's going to come true because F and G, right?
So much
And
more
that's all that's
interesting.
kind of happening today, is the new guys building on that, and he's got, it's just they're not writing it down as scripture, but they've got it written down as propaganda. So it's the same stuff, just done in a new technological way, really.
Yeah. And again, that's where the really cool stuff starts to come out, folks. And that's where you can really start to find value in you know, some stuff. For me, and this is where I go back to, is this very particular claim that there is nothing exclusively found in the Bible or any other religious text that is good. There is nothing good that is only from the Bible. This is very much like Hitchens' challenge that he put out for years. Name any one thing that is good, that we all agree is good, that a religious person can do that a non-religious person can't. And that really is a big deal, folks. Like, yes, does the Bible say be good to your neighbor? It does. It also says stone your daughter if she has sex. So, you know, guess who else has said things like be good to your neighbor? Everybody says that, because we all recognize how fucking easy that is. Like, it's very important that we don't just walk outside and just start to constantly punch our neighbors in the face. That's not a difficult thing to figure out. It is not exclusive to the Bible. So
No, absolutely not. I mean, what happened before the Bible? I mean, thousands of years, millions of years before the Bible. Like sometimes that just, when that really hits me, because, you know, we were a young earth creationist. Oh, we do have a call, but sometimes that really hits me and I'm like, what was I thinking that people were doing? Because I didn't think those people existed. I thought it all started with Adam and Eve. And now I'm like, oh my God, there was like so many millions years that passed. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have Bree Badger. Hold on, it's my okay. Bree, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey.
Hi, Bree. Thanks for calling in. You are live with Rion and Secular Rarity. Whoop whoop.
Yay. Yeah, so I was listening to what Phil was saying, and I just thought that what actually happened with, I mean, are you guys all familiar with the Nebraska man hoax, whatever? It wasn't really much of a hoax.
Are you talking about where it was the one that was the tooth that was ultimately found to be a pig? Is that the one you're talking about, or is that Piltdown?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this guy found a tooth in Nebraska, and he thought it was a human tooth, and based on the age, it would have been like, I don't know, but basically they were trying to claim that humans. I think there was a claim that there was like a type of human that evolved in the Americas. Yes. But yeah, the popular press ran with it. They came up with a whole composite sketch and everything, and but then like as soon as it got handed over to scientists, they were like, that's a pig's tooth.
Yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
Like that. A lot of yeah. So I mean, a lot of creationists like to go on and say, "Oh, see, science is deceptive." I'm like, no, I think this is actually a perfect example of how evidence is treated in the creationist, evolutionist debate, whatever you want to call it. They will pick something up and they'll say, it's proof of God. How do they know it's proof of God? Well, it is because it has to be. Yeah. Because they believe it is. But as soon as scientists look at it, they're like, I have no idea what that has to do with your God. It's just this.
Yeah. And real quick, Bree, because I think you touched on something there that's a super, super valid point. And one that, I understand why it can be difficult, especially with like the debate bro community online and stuff, just being all, that's a fallacy. Oh, fallacy.
Knock me out, please.
Yeah, I get it. Why a lot of people are like, okay, fuck all that nonsense. But I think what you just said right there was really good, because what you were saying was, without actually saying the words, was, hey, there's a disconnect between this thing you're holding up as the justification and then this conclusion that you've drawn. And that's why it is so deeply important to have at least a basic understanding, I think, of logical fallacies and stuff. Like, I was listening to a podcast earlier today, you guys, no joke, a politics podcast. I'm not going to say what it is. I love these guys. Actually, I've been listening to it for years. They always have great stuff. But this one guy was trying to make an argument, and he literally said, it's a slippery slope. He called out the fallacy he was using. And we do this all the time as people. All the time, people come up and they go, oh, well, it's either A or it's this other thing over here. And it's like, oh, that's a false dichotomy. That's not right. Your conclusion can't possibly come from that argument. And that's really important, because at the end of the day, when we go out there and we dig up this old city somewhere in Syria, really what's happening is people are constructing that argument in some form or fashion. They may not codify it with premises and little bullet points, but at the end of the day, what they are really doing is, in their head, they're creating that argument structure. And they're saying, because we found this city, because the Bible says this city was real, therefore my conclusion about God being real. And and that is a great moment to say, hey, that's actually a non sequitur, folks. That actually doesn't follow. And you touched on that really quickly in such a way that I just thought it was great. And it's just something that we all need to be cognizant of. Look, y'all, don't feel like you got to sit down and learn every damn word that has 14 syllables to it. You are not required to be.
Please, no. Help me, Jesus.
You do not have to be a hardcore physicist and an anthropologist and a philosopher. You do not. But it is super helpful to at least be knowledgeable enough that when somebody says to you, oh, well, that's a slippery slope, you can say, hey, you recognize you just called out the reason to not believe you. Yeah?
You just did it to yourself.
Yeah, and it's just like, because for me in particular, it's because the thing that really sparked that comparison in my mind was when Phil was like, oh, look at this rock. This rock proves God somehow. I was like, okay, so we're talking about a version of look at the trees, which we all make fun of and everything. But it is basically just there is this massive disconnect because they look at it and in their mind it proves there has to be a God because otherwise it wouldn't be there somehow.
Right.
But that's because they believe nothing would be here without God. So, like, it's this, they look at something and they have a conclusion they already want to draw and they just make it fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
Right.
that's, in my experience in dealing with like all these arguments and stuff is we don't really get evidence from creationists. We get claims and arguments.
Yep.
And the evidence that they hand to us is usually just stuff that if you actually look into it, it doesn't support their position.
Yeah. And I think that's
totally disconnected from their position.
Yeah. And again, I think that's where it is. Okay. So I know what I just said about not having to be a physicist and a philosopher and an anthropologist. I know I just said all of that. Okay. And I stand by all of that.
You're
Okay. But
scaring
hang
me.
on. Hang on. Just follow with me. I promise I will soften this blow for everybody. Just follow me. Okay.
Okay.
Again, you still don't need to be there, but it is actually kind of helpful knowing a little bit of shit. You know, like for instance,
Yeah.
one thing that I love and I always love to talk about because A, he's awesome, and B, he has more books out. So Dr. Josh Bowen in the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, Volume 1,
I love Dr. Josh,
which means there's a second one, and I'm pretty sure a third one is coming. But in the first one, he actually takes quite a while to just lay out the basic understanding of how we do archaeology, you know? And like, I was halfway through that chapter when it finally struck me, and I was like, dude, this is huge. This is actually really important information. And here's why. The people who run Hobby Lobby are super hardcore Christian. Not saying anything about their company necessarily, but I will say something about the people because
it's bad.
They
fine.
were absolutely 100% found guilty of stealing massive amounts of textual evidence and just all
didn't
kinds
they forge
of things. Oh my gosh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's really again, it's a federal court case, everybody. You can go read it. It's in the Library of Congress, easily Googleable. So terrible, terrible, terrible. But the reason that I brought all of that up does have some point, and I'm just trying to remember it 100%, which is, oh my gosh, why did I start talking about how shitty Hobby Lobby is? I just lost it.
The documents, the court case,
and Dr. Josh Bowen's book.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, so
good.
The reason I brought that up is because what they did for a while, and when they passed off this information illegally, once again, illegally violating federal and international law. I just want to keep saying that because it's fun for me because they're bad.
Get it out there. Get it out there.
But
they are bad.
One of the things that they definitely didn't have with a lot of this stuff, they didn't have any kind of understanding as to where in the grid system it was found. There was no kind of context when it came to, was it 6 feet down? Was it 3.5 feet to the left? Was it in this square? Was it in that square? And the reason that's so fucking important is because non-archaeologist here, non-geologist here, does not realize the amount of information we actually know about things like dirt. And we got a lot of information about it.
Yes.
And it's
super important to know where it was found in situ, and it's also why it's important to know how the dirt has settled, how it might have moved post, whenever it landed there, etc.
Boom. Let's say you have a tablet that you carbon date and it says, oh man, this tablet's super old. It's like 4,000 years old. And then right next to it in the dirt, you also have this other tablet, but it seems to be only like 600 years old. My gosh, this is confusing. Does that mean that the 600-year-old tablet actually had a precursor that would date closer to the older tablet? No, it doesn't. And here's why. Because this section of the world sits on a massive fault line that regularly shakes and moves stuff around. And you say, well, SR, how do you know? How do you know this? Funny enough, because we know shit about dirt, y'all. That's the point. And it wasn't until just getting a little bit of that understanding, in Dr. Josh's book that I was like, oh man, this actually is deeply important. And again, that doesn't mean you need to go spend the next 10 years of your life understanding quantum physics, but you can definitely learn enough to be able to say, hey man, what you're saying about the double slit experiment is actually not what that experiment
Right,
shows.
yeah. Oh my
It
gosh, so
just
many people
doesn't.
have taken that
It just
wrong. Oh
doesn't. Like,
my
it
Lord,
doesn't.
and run with it.
Let me
See,
explain.
when you watch it, it changes. See?
See?
See, that's proof. See? No, that's not what's happening. Help me, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. And so again, it is valuable to have a little bit of knowledge, you know. But
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
I just think that's true in everything. So
Yeah, it's I'd recommend like Professor Dave's channel. He's really good at explaining stuff,
oh
especially
yeah.
a lot of these things. And then I saw that he's gonna be on Skeptic Haven soon, or maybe he already has. I can't remember. It popped up in the
yeah, Professor Dave is actually coming in the next couple of days.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Professor Dave is going to be
Cool.
on, I
Okay,
think,
yeah.
the Sunny
Yeah.
spot. I think with Sunny Show. Like,
Look, you know better than me. Sheesh.
Yeah. So
I have nothing to do with my life, you guys. I
You're just
spend way
you're
too
just
much time.
always plugged in,
Yeah,
man.
it's so I really need to find like a hobby
You're like
or a
Yeah.
seeking
job or
popularity
just
instead of
friends.
rarity.
Yeah, I know. Anything.
I'm one of those weird people where I'll just like find like a YouTube video that's like really long, and then I'll like listen to it while I play video games.
Mhm.
Oh, I
I get
And
that.
constantly
like
have
the more
like
nerdy and scientific, the better.
yeah. I like listening to like
But yeah.
Vision or Gnostic
Myth
Informant. Like
Vision.
I like
Ugh.
learning about
Yeah.
well, because you like you said, the oh God,
McDonald?
McDonald.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Like just learning from him recently has just
Amazing.
been like mind blowing, and all the other like fantastic scholars that's on there that is like literally itching those or scratching those itches or what
Yeah.
however you phrase that have been in my brain for so long that now I'm getting like this tell
Yeah.
me more.
And
I
I think
love it.
I think there's something kind of cathartic in that too, a bit, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's this moment for you, especially as somebody who, you know, was in this very high control, this very don't ask questions, like don't learn shit, like we're gonna tell you what's right. That setting, I can completely understand how after you're away from that and you no longer accept all the extra baggage that comes with that stuff, all the consequences that come from that, how it could feel really good to like go back to that space and play around in a way where you just, you know, it's not real and you don't have to be so, you know, concerned about it being literal and about all the pain and shit that's going to come to you if you don't accept it. Like you get to go in now and it gets to be a superhero comic. You get to go have fun with it and you find out, you go, oh my gosh, Green Lantern is teaming up with Batman. Oh my God, that's so awesome. Like, that's cool that we get to do that with stories. That's what makes humans cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's also why I like a lot of the debunking videos and stuff, because, you know, like Simon Dan or whatever, you know, they'll sit there and they will not only point out that, you know, like flat earthers or whatever are wrong, but they'll explain why they're wrong.
Yes.
And so I get to learn as I'm laughing at flat earthers.
Yes. I will say this. I know this is probably getting a little bit further off. And I think we've got another call after. But real quickly, folks, I will tell you this right here, right now. I stand by this 100%. You can absolutely question me on this any day you want. We know the earth is not flat because of the picture from 1969 from the moon. We know for a fact the earth is not flat because of the picture that we took from the moon in 1969. Maybe I can convince Wes to bring me back on one day and I can explain that in great detail to y'all.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah.
You can it's super cool. It's a really, really interesting thing. And you absolutely cannot dispute that the picture is real. You cannot. There's way too much stuff out there that indicates the picture is 100% real. It happened at the time. We know for a fact. And if that picture is real, there is no freaking way the earth is not an oblate spheroid and the moon is also not an oblate spheroid.
So you're saying it's evidence.
It is 100% evidence. I need a stamp, or we need like a stamp that comes on the screen, or like an overlay that's just like evidence.
Yes, I like it.
So you're
And
saying Minecraft lied to me. The world is not a cube.
It's not. Yeah, I know. Actually, and this is a really fun piece of trivia. Christopher Columbus didn't think the Earth was flat. Christopher Columbus actually thought the Earth was pear-shaped.
Oh,
I know. He literally thought at the top of the Earth was a nipple, very similar. I'm not kidding. He wrote this shit down. He was an absolute narcissist. His personal diaries referred to himself as Captain Christopher Columbus. It's fascinating, y'all. Seriously, way too much worthless knowledge in here. Again, I really do need a hobby. If anybody has any
really
suggestions.
shit at math, and that's how he got like his circumference so completely wrong.
The worst dude to get lucky. Like, my goodness, couldn't have been a worse dude. Yeah, genocidal maniac.
And the Americas were never the same.
And here we are. Here we are in this patriarchy. Yeah. Thanks, Christopher.
Yeah.
Longest. Well, Bree, we appreciate you calling.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice. Yes, it was nice talking to you. Yeah, you have a good night. Thank you, everybody, for chat. Everybody in the audience is just plant nipple. They love your plant nipple. People are calling.
Again, I'm not joking about that, you guys. Like, feel free, please. Any of these little weird facts that I throw out to you, like, please go Google them. I want people to know about this stuff. It's so weird. Like,
it really makes me think of like Mother Earth now having a nipple.
Right.
Yeah,
so
like Mother Earth's little teeth.
So I'm not saying this is true, but I'm just pointing out some facts, okay? That Mars and the Earth are pretty close to each other in space. Okay. They have a lot of the same composition. They may both have nipples on the top. Oftentimes one breast is slightly smaller than the other. And we could be on the titties of some supernatural deity. Guys, it's not turtles all the way down. It's titties all the way down. I'm done with this.
That seems a bit more interesting. It's okay. I think that probably is a better answer. I mean, they're fraternal twins. They're not twins. They're fraternal twins. So it's like one's the ugly cousin.
I'm so sorry, Wes. I feel really bad. I know right now you were backstage and are just like violently upset. So I really apologize to everybody here at Skeptic Haven. I have just drug us down into just as far lowbrow as we can go.
You have given us light and love all night, just all night, like the sun. Lisa, I know you want to be on air with us, and I'm sure that you have something you'd like to talk about. You're on with Rion and Secular Rarity. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm afraid I might drag down the conversation a little bit because you guys were having such a good moment.
Honestly though, Lisa, did you hear the last 20 minutes? Like, the bar is fairly low. I think
we're talking about planet nipples.
Yeah, I think if you come on here and change the conversation, you will only be increasing the value.
I don't know that it can go any further down from here. Right. So go for it, Lisa. What did you have for us? What was your question or moment, perspective?
Well, it wasn't as lighthearted as that. Because your original question that I saw was about how do we have evidence, right, of God and the Bible and whatnot. And I guess my thing is, how would you define evidence in that the evidence of science would not be the evidence of spiritual?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things there. I guess the first place I would like to go is really just asking what what do you mean when you say spiritual? Do you have, and again, like I know this is often very difficult to do, Lisa, like don't feel like I'm just gonna like jump on every little word you say or anything, but what would you say you're actually trying to get at when you say spiritual? Then we can go to the other things, but that's for me one of the hardest places to start, is because when somebody says that word to me, I genuinely, my mind is blank now. Years ago, I would have had an answer.
It had a connection for you.
But now I don't. And so I want to know where you're coming from when you say there's this science stuff in the world and then there's this spiritual stuff in the world. What's that stuff?
Okay, so my belief is, or what I have drawn conclusion to come to understand, is that say you take a plant and what that plant can do. If you try and replicate that in the lab, it's not going to be 100% like the plant. So I'm kind of coming from a more naturalistic, like we all come from God. So our plants, our animals, and our own being is made from a part of a divinity type thing. So we all connect through that spiritual part of us, which is not a
okay. I think I'm following.
Scientifically comportable thing.
I think I'm following with you, but it does lead me to ask, why would that not be something that we could get scientific evidence or at least run some tests on? Why is that something that is excluded from that category? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that because, okay, so like I had to give a report in biology class, and I did it on the essential oils, right? And I broke down and gave the chemical constituents of an oil and was like, but then if you take and you try and put that into replicate, like say lemon oil, you try and replicate that in what it does in the body and make it up scientifically, and even though you have the same chemical constituents, it does not create the same effect within the body.
Why does that lead you to
science
believe
has not been
that
able
there's
to replicate nature?
why does that lead you to believe that there must be another category of existence? Because it sounds to me, and believe me, if I'm wrong on any of this, Lisa, you come back and you say, no, SR, you dumbass, that's not what I said. Believe me, I take kindly to that. So but it sounds like to me what you're saying is there's two different types of existence that are happening simultaneously in the world around us. And there's this one that's like in the realm of science, whatever that means yet. We haven't even gotten there, but that's fine. But then there's this other one that's like in the realm of spiritual. And even though they seem to overlap in your view, there seems to be at least a section of that spiritual stuff that doesn't touch the science stuff. And that's where the difficulty lies for me. So going back to what you said about like trying to reproduce lemon, I think lemon is, I could be wrong on this, I think lemon is one of those things that when you make an artificial flavor, you just literally actually have to use real lemon. I don't think we have figured out a way to make lemon completely artificial like we have with strawberry. But besides the point, why does that lead you to believe that there is this other section of existence that science could never go into?
Oh, see, that's what I'm not saying one cancels out the other. I think what I'm trying to say is that nature has the part of it where we were created by and through God. And so the spiritual, we connect with it, just like, and more people call it humanity or call it, just nature, like where we all say, oh, this is how we all connect, right? Like
Like
when you
connecting
get
to
into
like a
frequencies and all
consciousness
that
of
kind of stuff,
spirit.
we all connect in different ways. But the reason we do is because we're all tapping into that part of us that was created through God.
What if I shot this back to you and said, hey, actually, I think you're kind of right. Like, I think when you're talking about this, this kind of unique thing that seems to like travel across, all of existence, not just people, but we really see it in people. When we see somebody, hugging a dog over in Indonesia, we get that same feeling. We love it. We can even see this in like dolphins and sometimes plants. We've shown that some plants of the same species, when they find out that another plant is being attacked by like a fungus or something, the other plants will send resources. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
What if I shot back and said, your conclusion from that is that there's this other substance that is spiritual, right? What if I just said the reason that we see that thread is because we're all made up of the same existing stuff? Like we're all made up of the same matter. So there's only so many ways that carbon can design itself. And as carbon has continued to, structure itself in that way, I don't think carbon is like a thinking entity. I'm just using those words for easiness sake, y'all. But like as carbon has, structured itself in a certain way, there's only so many outcomes. And so of course people are kind of like dogs and plants because we're all made of the same carbon. What would you say
We're
to
made
that?
of stars.
Yeah, we're stardust.
I would say
I think that's beautiful.
Taking
just
out.
itself.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying I think that's beautiful just in and of itself. I mean, for me, that kind of like is enough.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. But yeah, what would you say to that, Lisa?
What is enough? That because you're breaking it down to like we're carbon, and that's why we're all connecting. But that's, to me, you're taking away from the beautifulness of that, and you're trying to break it down into like a scientific thing that you can prove, but you're taking away the part that is the feeling part of us, the way that we connect through our emotions.
Okay.
And
can I?
Yeah,
do you mind? I know you were. I'm sorry.
Plants even have emotions.
I don't want to. I know I kind of cut you off, but I think you brought up a really, really good point. And a lot of times in the atheist or non-religious space, like a lot of people on my side of this conversation, Lisa, if you say the word emotions, they just like projectile vomit. I said that because of something that Rion and I were talking about beforehand. You don't get to know about that, by the way, viewers, unless you become a Patreon. If you become a patron member, you can hear all of the weird discussions. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, Lisa.
That we have backstage.
I have to do a plug. But
rated R.
So like, what if I said to you that, and this is just a personal thing, this is just me, until I stepped away from a belief in the supernatural, I saw no beauty in the existence. It's only been by sitting in a position of saying, I don't think that there is anything else but this substance around us. Breaking it down to just carbon is just me just trying to do a shorthand to like, move on with the conversation. But like, for me, what I see, okay, in this, let's just say purely naturalistic world, just the world that falls in that realm of science-y stuff, what I see is the greatest story of all time. What I see is something that had no chance of survival, finding a way to survive, trying absolutely everything, desperately clinging to whatever tiny little bit they could to just stick around for one more day. And that over generations and generations of repeated knockdowns from everything else around us, we have persevered. We are here today. We are here and we are natural. That to me is gorgeous. That's the beauty of life. Like, what would you say to that if somebody said, hey, I think the only beauty and emotional connection that you really get is by stripping away that supernatural stuff.
Well, I would say I completely understand where you're coming from and see where you would go to that. Because nature is beautiful in and of itself, and just seeing how it all relates to one another. I come from where, my background is in psychology, and so and I know pseudoscience, whatever.
No. Hang on, Lisa. Psychology is a lot more well-founded than a bunch of dickheads want to tell you. So you can just point them to the hundreds of years worth of evidence that you and your colleagues have. You don't have to take that from those people.
Right. Like,
well, I do love that science is being able to show what we kind of knew was happening up there, but through brain scans in the moment, and telling people to think about, yourself being be on fire and see what the brain does, and mapping it like that.
We've really made progress.
Brain stuff is so fascinating to me.
I agree.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, like, we honestly have where our connections are so important, and whether that's to each other or to an animal or to nature, that is how we relate to one another. So I don't like taking and stripping that away, in that I'm trying to understand it more, where why do we connect, and like why do we have that drive to, and how do we connect, and what strengthens those connections.
Interesting. Yeah, I think so. I think there's a couple of different routes we could go, Lisa. But for me, I think the vast majority of the problems that I see in other people's belief systems and stuff, it doesn't seem to me currently. I mean, this is the first time we met, so I don't know. Maybe you're a terrible person. Maybe I am too, right? Neither of us know, but
I am.
Right. Ryan's, it's
pretty
rough.
That out here already.
4 years now.
But I feel like most of the other problems and harms that we see in a lot of belief systems, you're not falling foul of, which is great, and I love that. What sticks though, what sticks for me and gives me this difficulty is, it almost sounds like to me that you, and please correct me, but it almost sounds like to me you have purposefully sectioned off things in your life that do not follow the same methodology as everything else in your life. And I wonder if you think there is value in that consistency. Like, is it the right course of action? I'm not going to ask you for a whole philosophical justification. Don't worry, Lisa. But is it better as humans that we use a more consistent methodology for accepting claims as to whether or not they're true? Or is it okay if we use whatever methodology we want? And that's not like a real dichotomy, but I think it kind of gets what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of so I had an experience where I won't get into what it was, but I was trying to say, is it either or could it be both? And I'm finding that with a lot of stuff, whether it's can there be spirituality and Scientology and not Scientology, but scientific.
Yeah.
Spirituality.
I think we can all here agree, Lisa, Scientology is probably wrong, right?
Yeah, that is.
Sorry.
Yikes.
Can they actually be both? And my world is becoming more, my worldview is becoming more. It can be both, and they can support one another, and they can confirm both of each other.
Have you ever heard of the term? And I hadn't for a really long time. Actually, my my very close Christian friend who lives in the same city as me, we get together regularly and we talk and we do like in-person discussions and stuff. But we just go grab tacos or coffee every so often, and just chat about stuff. But my friend said this word to me, and I'm wondering if you've ever heard of it, Lisa. It's not supernatural. It's supra-natural. S-U-P-R-A. Have you ever heard of that term?
I mean, I've heard of it. But...
No, but I'm interested.
Yeah, so go look it up.
Me too.
But it's kind of falling in line, from my understanding. It's kind of falling in line with like what you're saying, because one day my friend said to me, he said, Elliot, it seems like when you have these conversations, you say, here's this stuff right here, and this stuff is all natural. And then there's this stuff up here, and that's supernatural with an E. What if they're actually all the same freaking thing? That's kind of the concept of supranatural. So that there's not really this distinction, but that there is this interweaving of these two things. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, Lisa, I still don't agree with that, but I think it's a very interesting concept. And it might be something that helps, again, just kind of like when Phil and I were talking earlier, and maybe it doesn't change your position on anything, but maybe it solidifies your understanding better in a way that you can then have these conversations with other people and make progress. And so I would definitely say go check that out. And then I will, again, because I'm gonna show you all my cards, Lisa. I don't play it close to the vest. So I still don't accept that thing, okay? But as you're looking into it, the question I would love for you to ponder, and actually you don't even have to. You can just tell me to go fuck myself. Like you don't have to take my homework, but I would love for you. I would love for you to ponder, like, what is it specifically about the supernaturally stuff, or at the very least, certain things in this category? What is it specifically that keeps them outside of the realm of science? Right? Because I would even argue that science, in the kind of general, and we didn't define every little term we were using tonight, but that's okay, because I think we're all on the same page. But I would even take the stance that science can't disprove God. I would take the stance that science can't like disprove the soul, even though I think the soul is one of the most disproven things out there. I would still say at the end of the day, there are actually some claims that I think are squarely outside the bounds of science. But I bet you and I would have different reasons for why that's the case. And I think that reason as to why certain things are outside the bounds of science, I think that reason will get you to the best understanding. So I don't know if Wes is going to actually ever let me back on the show again, but if he does, please definitely call me and talk with me some more, Lisa, because yeah, I think there is a lot here. And again, not to say that, I'm hoping that your mind will just completely change or anything. I mean, we disagree, but maybe just looking more into
we can agree to disagree. Like you were saying, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No, please cut me off.
I'm with you 100% on it, because I'm excited by this conversation, because instead of us like trying to force each other into a position and have you come to my side or me come to your side, it's like, okay, how can we be stepping more towards the middle and finding the things where we can go, oh yeah, and bounce ideas off one another. And I find that to be a much better conversation. And I
agree.
think one of the reasons why you probably and move away from all the doctrines that you is because you were force fed it. You were like I know it tastes horrible, but here, eat it anyway because it's good for you. And anybody would be like, well, I don't care if it's good for me. I don't want it. Right.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I will tell you this just because it's so funny you said it that way to me, Lisa. I remember having a conversation, and this was like before I was like super into like the philosophy and the science and all that shit, right? I remember having a conversation with a buddy of mine. We were both like 18, and he was like, oh man, you get your steak like medium well or well done. Like that's fucked up, SR. And I was like, well, how do you eat your steak? And he goes, dude, like fucking rare. And I was like, okay, why? And he goes, well, because, well, the first time I had steak was when I was young, and that was the way my parents cooked it. And I hated it for years. And I went, okay. And he goes, and now that's the only kind I can eat. And I go, do you see the problem? You see the problem? And just what you said about being like force fed, just blasted that back into my memory. And I was like, we do this in a lot of, I once asked my parents why they chose the auto insurance that they did. Okay. Not like the biggest thing in the world that has all these consequences, right? Like whether or not a God is real probably has more consequences and you know, whether or not you choose Geico or Progressive or whatever. But I asked them, I was serious because I was just starting to go out there and like get some auto insurance.
Yeah.
And I just remember both of them, they both had different auto insurances and they both felt extremely strongly about the value of that company. But when asked as to why, they really didn't have a reason except for, well, we've been with them. Well, we've just used the General for so long. Why would we change? Like, this is what our parents did. Like, why would we pick something different?
Don't question it.
And I love being able to see that in so many different, categories of life and stuff. And again, I think this type of conversation, Lisa, is exactly what I want on a regular basis.
Same.
Like, because you
challenge me too.
Yeah. And you came here and you were honest and you were sincere and you were genuinely trying to hash stuff out and have the conversation. And that's what I think is super valuable. I don't like being upset. I don't like the way I handled the first call on this show tonight. I'll gladly say that. But I think, again, when we're presented more often than not, when we on the non-religious side, on the atheist side, when we are presented with a genuine person like you, Lisa, I really do think we can make progress and we can have good conversation. And we don't have to be in this boat of like, oh, I need to change your mind and I need to show you how dumb you are and blah, blah, blah. Let me say mean things, blah. So yeah, I just go look up the stuff. Or again, like, just tell me, to suck it and then call back in either way, honestly, because I think you're good callers. So
yeah, thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you. I will look up the term. I do feel like I'm more embodying that in just a natural progression of, I guess, hopefully getting wiser as I age.
Yeah, I hope that for myself too, Lisa.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what it is. It's experience, there's so much that we don't know until we know it. And a lot of it is just through pure experience. You can read it all you want to, but sometimes it just has to be that way. So
yeah,
we're getting old like fine wine.
Yeah, it's the same with statistics where you can take the same numbers and stats and have it support your and twist it to support your logic, but doesn't mean that that's what the numbers meant.
Yeah. With enough dishonest activity from any interlocutor, you can make anything say whatever you want. Yeah, for sure. Right. So
but yeah, I appreciate it. I was so nervous to call in because I purposely do not use big terminology just because I'm like, well, you can get into where you can get a battle of the minds and who's got the sharper.
Yep.
But that's not really what it's about, right? We're trying to like really understand one another from where they're coming from and why they're coming from that and how maybe we can see, oh, that's what just popped in my brain. Like a diamond has how many different facets, and they've all been like cut and honed and shaped, and that's what gives the diamond more clarity. Well, that's how we are. If we can see each other's facets and see where it's coming from that viewpoint and that angle, then we can see the beauty of the whole connectedness of it.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of where you want to go, not only with yourself, but as, as somebody, part of humanity and so forth. Like, I think where you are largely trying to go and where I am largely trying to go are very much similar places. And again, I've said this today. I've said this almost every single day over the last few weeks. I know I've said it on every fucking show that I've been on over the last 2 months, which is whether or not we agree on the existence of the supernatural or gods or ghosts or aliens coming in and putting things up our butts. If you
please
are somebody at the end of the day who stands with me when it comes to fighting for the rights of individuals, when it comes to standing up for the LGBTQ communities, when it comes to standing up for the rights for people to believe and practice their religions safely without being criminalized, because I am absolutely against Muslims being put in jail or being put to death simply for being Muslims. Right. And if you stand with me on that, Lisa, you and I are so much on the same fucking team, and we can sit down. We can sit down and hash it out over coffee on this other stuff and have a better world by the time we're all dead. So yeah, I value, that so much more than I value the, hey, we agree on 99% of shit, but you think ghosts are real, so I can't like you, brah. Like,
right.
So yeah, I think this was a phenomenal call. Hopefully other people agree as well. Again, I don't know if Wes is going to let me back on at this point, but I really do appreciate you. It was good talking with you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Take care. Yeah, that was
Bye-bye.
awesome.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. So we have one last call, y'all. Thank you again, Lisa. This is Shane.
Ooh.
Hi, Shane. Can you hear us?
Hello.
You're on live. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
I'm great. I'm thankful that you've called in tonight. What do you have for us?
So I kind of wanted to talk about the definition of evidence, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your definition or?
Well, I think there's maybe 3 that we're kind of working with here. SR mentioned the first 2 earlier, where one kind of I'll call the R and raw definition.
Sure.
Where it's positively indicative and only according with
that very strict sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second one is the Kenneth Leonard definition. That's the one that's like anything that can be used to demonstrate that something is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the third one, I'm going to call the T-jump definition, because he's the one who always says it all the time. It's novel testable prediction. That's one I don't think we've been kind of talking about yet.
Could you say that again? I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
Sorry?
Just repeat the third one again real quick, Shane.
Thank you.
Oh, novel testable predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I know all 3 of those, by the way, and I think there is value. And I like how you termed the hardest one, the R and raw, and then the T-jump one, and then the Kenneth Leonard one. I will say, though, as much as I may value all of those people in their arguments and stuff, but I don't think any one of them came up with any of those, I don't think honestly, most of the shit I say isn't new. Like, I'm just rehashing shit motherfuckers said. I'm so sorry, Wes. I keep cussing. I just completely.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah. But go ahead, man.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying that they came up with them. I'm saying that, these are the people I've heard say them on Colin
And it's a good way to distinguish
or
them.
other debates and things like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I think Aaron Rod's porridge is too hot and Kenneth Leonard's porridge is too cold. Like
That's awesome.
Aaron Rod, under that definition, there's no bad evidence at all. Like if it's bad evidence, it's not evidence.
Right.
The only evidence is good evidence, or
right.
sort of evidence, I guess. And with Kenneth Leonard's evidence, that anything really could be in it, or Kenneth Leonard's definition, anything could be considered evidence almost. And I think that's a little too broad. So with the definition of novel testable predictions, I feel like this is kind of what science goes with more. But my question was, like, back a long time ago when people thought the earth was flat, because they looked out and they saw it was really flat as far as they could see, would that be considered evidence that the earth is flat? Or like older theories, like medicine theories with leeches and stuff, like, hey, when we do this, sometimes they get better, that could be considered evidence,
yes,
and
it would be.
And that leads me to the sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you on that. I would say, yeah, like way back long time ago, even though in fairness, it is worth pointing out that Eratosthenes actually totally proved that the earth was round like way, way long back ago. But let's just take that out of the equation, go back even a little bit further. Yes, I 100% accept that looking outside would count as evidence in some instances here, right? Not always, but in some instances. But the issue that I think we find ourselves in with the other two is that eventually, the dog did not like my stance. But the issue I think with the just right porridge and the too cold porridge is that eventually we have to use the too hot porridge. Otherwise, it's all worthless. Because in the softest version, what we have is the possibility of good evidence and bad evidence. Bad evidence doesn't do the hot porridge. Good evidence does do the hot porridge. Whereas, how would we figure this out? Well, it's the novel testable predictions. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I come to the stance that I come to. Yeah, not saying that that's completely perfect and sound and valid and everything, y'all. Please, absolutely, always love the pushback. But that's where we get to is what I always see, is that basically what it seems like we're doing is when not accepting that most strict sense, we just have to take an extra couple of steps to get back to it. Like, why go around our elbow to get to our ass? We don't have to. We can just go directly to butthole.
That's what I do.
I genuinely never understood that for a really long time, and finally realized that what they mean is going across the other side of your body to try to wipe. But like before, I was like, how do you go around your elbow? Anyway, sorry, but yeah, I'll shut up for a second and get your thoughts.
Just imaging that right now, just visualizing. No big deal.
After show, baby.
Sorry, Shane.
So. Yeah, kind of one more thing I was kind of reading that, like, that famous quote, I guess, that all theories are wrong and some are useful. Like, right now, we would probably say that the cosmic microwave background radiation is evidence of the Big Bang and, like, the red shift and blue shift and that kind of thing. But it could be the case that in, like, 50 years from now, we find out Big Bang that model was actually wrong and or incomplete, and it's actually not evidence, and something else explains that better. So, I mean, I think right now we would consider that the CMB is evidence of the Big Bang model.
Right, but I don't think that
in the future it might not be.
I don't think that the possibility of what is currently accepted as evidence potentially being found out to be untrue, right? Just not necessarily false, but just even untrue. I don't think that changes anything about the different potentials in the definition, right? So if tomorrow we actually discover something that gives us a better indication about the microwave background radiation and stuff, like that doesn't change that at the time when that was the only information we have, it either did or did not positively indicate a single outcome, right? What it does is it tells us that at the time when we accepted that as true, it actually wasn't as justified as we thought. So it's not that because this particular justification is later found out to be wanting in some way, that our definition of evidence is potentially on bad footing. It's just that what we were accepting as evidence did not actually meet the original criteria.
So I think what's going on is using the hot forge definition. Why did I come up with this thing on the? Oh my gosh,
I love it. Anyway, I love it. Honestly, I love it.
It's good.
Okay, using the hot forage definition, we would say like, oh, this is indicative of only one conclusion. But in reality, it seems like, oh, this was only indicative of one conclusion that we're aware of, and is actually indicative of other conclusions. And
absolutely,
we were just,
But I don't think that shows the flaw in the understanding and the differentiations of using that word evidence, which I think there is, by the way, great value in having slightly different, understandings of specific words like this. Probably not for car. We probably don't need to go through all this shit for car, but for some things like evidence or truth, I think it's worth it that we have a little bit more of a hashing out. But it just seems to me like the issue at the end of the day is not the criteria for what counts as evidence. The issue is the same issue that we all have to deal with. You and I do not have an answer for why the laws of logic. You and I do not have an answer for whether or not the sun rises tomorrow. We have to live in a world where we constantly accept every single thing that happens in the next second really has no justification. It really doesn't. Because we could all be brains in vats. We could all be imagining this shit from aliens. We don't have. And so where I think we go from that is the same place that J-Mike often goes, which is now we're sitting here with these two.
I thought you were J-Mike.
No, I shaved. So no, I shaved. I'm only J-Mike when the beard grows. It's weird. It like changes my whole facial structure. but
with the hair. Yeah.
I think where that ends up leaving us is these two competing hypotheses that seemingly have about the same fucking justification. Neither one of them really has a differentiation in terms of why we should accept this one over the other. But what we do have is consequences from either of those hypotheses being true. And so if the hypothesis that we have says, oh yeah, magic's a part of our world, well, then we have all this other baggage down the line that we now have to contend with. Whereas if we accept the claim that, again, is seemingly on equal footing with the magic, but just says, hey, I just don't think that's the case, we just don't have all that other baggage down the line. We just don't have all these other things that we have to explain, right? And so I think what happens with all of that is when we accept something as that strictest criteria for evidence and later find out that our justification was not actually as good, that where we're actually at is right there. Right back to that, hey, the foundation of everything is essentially apparently sitting on nothing, and neither of us have a reason to pick our side over the other, but my side has less baggage down the road than yours does. And if where we're at is saying nothing can be counted as evidence in that strict sense until we have that complete certainty on all those other things, we're fucked, right? We're never going to get there. It really does seem to be the case. We will never have a grounding for the laws of logic, But again, it seems like at the end of the day, we have to go back to that strictest form of evidence eventually. We can start with the coldest of porridge and use that just right porridge as the vehicle. But I think where it will eventually take us is back to that hot porridge. I think we're going to be right back in that boat. And it's just a matter of cutting down the things that we do actually have good evidence for. We do actually have solid justification for. And in that process, yeah, we're going to find out we were wrong on some things. But that doesn't change the criteria when it comes to saying, hey, this actually counts. I hope some of that made sense. I know I fucking started rambling at some point. I've also been doing this for a while today, like literally also. I am a little, but did any of that make sense, Shane?
It's full-time atheist here.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Sweet. But again,
I think we largely agree.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And again, like I think there is value in having these different understandings and these different senses of certain words. Again, probably not for some things like chair. We probably don't need to go through all that fucking shit for, but for truth, for evidence, for reality, like I think those because
but what about God?
That's Oh, God is one of that's why I love the non-cognitivists. The theological non-cognitivists are awesome because basically their whole argument is at the end of the day, like I can't even understand what you're saying when you say this because it just doesn't piece itself together in my brain like that, And I think that's super valuable because it gets us to this place where we actually have to hash out some of these understandings. And we will find out, for instance, that if you're using the word faith and trust completely synonymously, there's no value. There's no value in differentiating between the word. And then it leads you to wonder, why in the hell did we have these two different words, right? If they literally mean the same thing. So, yeah, I do think there's great value in understanding that there are different senses for this. And I think it's worth, again, hashing that out, especially if you really want to make progress in a conversation with somebody who is on the opposite side from you, So yeah, I think it's worthwhile. And I think we should do our best to engage our interlocutors where they're at. There's no reason for me to try to push you to use any particular sense, but maybe through understanding our sides more, I can offer something that says, oh, hey, you know what? Okay, I see it like that. Or you can offer something to me that makes me go, oh, huh, you know what? Maybe I was trying to separate those things a little too hard. So, but again, I thought this was great, Shane. And I think there's, there is, I guess one reason I like to use the strict sense is because then I just don't have to hash out good or bad evidence. I could just say it either is evidence or it's not evidence. And it's easier for me because then it's like, well, I found a chicken on my porch last night. I'm pretty sure that means coyotes are real and killing all my chickens. And it's like, well, that sounds like bad evidence to me. So to avoid me having to go through this whole, let's talk about epistemology and how we know shit. I'm just going to say, not Terry, that's not evidence. So maybe it's just a pragmatism in shorthand. But also, I don't have a friend named Terry. I've used the name Terry when I make fun of people a lot. It's really just me picking a random name. I do not have a friend who is this stupid, just in case anybody.
I was going to say, poor Terry.
I know, he's a dick, but he's all made up.
There's going to be a Terry that comes along now, and they're just gonna be like, oh, man.
I'm going to meet somebody tomorrow, and he's going to be like the coolest person in the world or something. Like, Terry, I am so sorry. Anyway,
sorry, Terry.
Do you have anything else for us, Shane?
Yeah, actually, Supernatural was the name of my band in high school.
It is a pretty cool band name.
Shane.
It is a pretty cool band name.
I like that band name, Shane. Damn it. That's such a good joke. I love that. It's such a good joke. I steal it all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you so
much. All right. Well, it was really good talking to both of you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Shane. Yeah, it's good to hear from you again, brother.
Refine my my definitions here, and you know, I
Yeah.
gotta sharpen these tools that I have because they're pretty dull from being in. They've been buried in the ground, rusting.
Well, but this is something that's honestly it's so deeply interesting because I see this all the time, and there are a lot of us that have just really been walking through life, just doing things and accepting things, and just going along
Yeah,
to get
as it's
along,
been spoon fed to
right?
us.
And it really can be some of the, again, I fully believe this, y'all. It can be some of the most gorgeous stuff in the entire world. Is getting that moment of finally understanding a difficult concept that you'd never understood before and realizing the connection that it has for so many other thoughts that you have and seeing how valuable it can be in those spheres too. That is one of the most beautiful things ever. And I really, really do think where you get the most of that is not in a religious context. It's not in a supernatural context. And yeah, again, my life has been way more beautiful since I stopped accepting magic and ghosts. That's personal anecdote. I get it, y'all, but I'm
I
sticking
agree
with
with
it.
you.
I'm sticking with it. So
I agree with you. Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Shane.
Cool.
thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Now
We'll
get
talk
off
to
the
you
show.
soon. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Everyone, I need to make sure that I thank all the wonderful people who gave us the chats
Yes.
in the super chats. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the word. The super chats. Thank you so much for the calls too. Like that was really awesome to hear from different people and their perspective. Especially when it comes to evidence. You know, I hadn't really thought too much about the fact that for different things there might be different requirements for the evidence, and I'd never really thought about some of that stuff. If you walked out your house, you would have just assumed the earth was flat, and that kind of makes sense. But
Yeah.
as we learn and we get more information, it changes. But you know, I think religion does the same thing. Religion changes too. It's not the same. Christians today are not the Christians of the 2nd century. Like it's completely different. So
It
there
was a
is
big deal
always
when the
this
Catholic
evolution
Church.
happening.
Yeah, it was a big deal when the Catholic Church accepted evolution. Ooh. Yeah.
Right? but things change, and it's awesome to see that some people do accept it.
Yes.
And that's why we got to keep plugging away with, you know, evidence, definitions of such, and just having an open mind, because it might go against everything that we were taught and we've just accepted our entire lives.
Yep, totally agree.
Thank you so much for being here. I don't know if I can remember everybody who gave us super chats, but
we got
I know
Mimi here, tons of mice. Oh my gosh.
Derek Cruz, Dan D. Yeah, I knew Dan. Thank you so much, Dan. We really appreciate it. Alma, that's right, Alma. Thank you.
Love Alma. Wonderful person.
Oh, and I want to make sure that we wish a happy birthday to Bree Badger in the comments. Thank you for screening, and you know, there's just wonderful people. This is a really good community. Like, and I understand like wanting to protect it because this has been truly helpful for me in my journey, just education wise, having people who understand me and not worrying that I'm going to be judged for, you know, how I think, act, believe, etc. So that's a beautiful part of this community. I'm so glad that everybody here is a part of it.
Yeah, it really is. It's a wonderful place with a lot of really hardworking people and a lot of work that you don't see when you're hanging out in the chats and stuff. So just remember, y'all, like there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to keep this channel and a lot of other channels and communities running. And if you get a chance, just say thank you. Like it goes a long way, and it honestly doesn't take that much, you know? So
I want to thank Dante. Dante was the one who was screening tonight. Thank you, Dante. And Wes and Phil and Kat. And there's just so many people who behind the scenes do so much. I mean, I just get tired trying to think of ideas, let alone doing all the work behind it. So
that's a lot.
thank goodness Yeah, it really is a lot. And like you said, it's been years. So please make sure, whenever you see the streams, like, share, whatever you can do to help boost, because YouTube does recognize that.
Yep.
Yeah, it does help with the algorithm. It's a shame that we have to like fight the beast, but you got to play the game.
Yeah. So true.
Oh, our other shows that we have are Sunny Spot on Thursdays. Saturday, we have the Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. Our show today, Let's Talk, Secular Soapbox on Wednesdays. There's tons of stuff, y'all. Make sure you like, subscribe. Secular Rarity, I think people need to know where to find you because you're so hard to find.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
like, if we had to look, I mean, I guess, where would we go?
So I think I have this link, but I'm making sure, because I have one of those little like cute little link tree things. So I have it in the private chat for Wes, if you can get it in the chat. But if you go to the link tree thing, you can find like Twitter and Facebook, and I technically have like a TikTok, but I don't really do anything on it. I have actually recently created a Patreon, although there is nothing on it, unfortunately. But I've had a lot of people that have said to me for a long time, hey man, put this up there. There are people out there that love what you do and want to support. The more support I have there, folks, truly, the more I'm able to do this stuff. And I love doing it. I've been joking a lot today about, how much I've been doing and stuff. But it may surprise some of you, probably doesn't surprise all of you, that for about 2 years of my life, this was the amount of time I put in every Sunday. About 8 to 9 hours working behind the scenes for a handful of different places, including working a few hours every other day for other wonderful places. So I'm thrilled that I've gotten all the opportunities that I have. I'm so humbled, being able to be around so many wonderful people. And yeah, I said to Wes when he hit me up and he was like, hey man, would you want to do the show? It's going to be Rion. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I love Rion. So I'm thrilled to be here again with you. Yeah. You have some absolutely wonderful stuff. And yeah, I love this community. I love the people here. I love what y'all do. So I love to help out wherever I can. And, yeah, if you give me money, I'll just say this straight out, folks. If you start giving me money on Patreon, I will have a roof over my head for longer. So that I'm just kidding.
Money, please.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, give it to me. Give me all the money. Send it to go to your parents' wallet right now, folks, and take out the credit.
Empty
I'm
it
just
out.
joking. I'm joking. Don't do that.
God wants you to do this. He's calling you.
That's right. That's right. It's in the Bible somewhere.
But it is time consuming, right? I mean,
It is.
there's a lot of thought, and
takes a
those
lot.
thoughts like are exhausting. Like sometimes like just thinking of show ideas and all the weird things that I do.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it would be exhausting, but really sometimes when you get out to like the logistics of it, and it just can be so much. So yeah, I mean, it's just a way to show appreciation. So and thank you again to everybody who showed your appreciation tonight. You dug deep, and God appreciates it.
That's right.
Oh, would you mind taking us out before we leave? Would you mind giving us our Patreons, the beautiful people who do give me the money, please?
I can do this right here. So thank you so much to all of the wonderful patrons here for Skeptic Haven. We've got Sydney Davis Jr. We've got Eric Ozols, Tara S, Rion. We've got Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Seriously, every single one of those people, I can absolutely tell you, are great freaking people. I love those people. Wonderful folks. And again, seriously, as much help as the Patreon is, folks, okay? And it's a lot. The super chats, they're super meaningful. This stuff costs money. It takes time. I promise you,
the equipment,
liking
everything.
the video is one of the greatest damn things you can do for a channel that you love. Like the video, comment below. It is so simple. It takes absolutely no effort, and the amount of support that you end up providing for a community is huge. So do that. Share it out everywhere. yeah, definitely go check out Rion. Like, why is everybody not already watching all her shit? Like, that's crazy to me. It's
watch my shit, Dan. You know what?
shit.
I lost a few subscribers on YouTube today.
What'd you
No
do?
idea.
What'd you
I
do?
don't.
You
The
probably
last thing I posted was about a hate preacher who was telling women they should be silent in church. And
well, there you
so
go.
I'm not sure
there you
why
go.
my followers would not like that. I would think
I
that
mean,
they would be.
Should women really be talking? Should women really
Honestly,
be talking?
that could be that. I did have somebody unfollow me like a week or two ago because I'm for abortions. I mean, not I'm for abortions, but I'm pro-choice.
Right.
And because of that, like, yeah,
Gosh.
he was fine with me entertaining him. Like that was fine. But until I had an opinion and I want autonomy in my body, then it was like,
yeah. Honestly, shame on you.
It's too
shame
much.
on
How
you,
dare
Rion.
you?
Yeah.
You should just dance and do all these acting and skits and entertainment for me, but don't be a person. Don't you be a person. So yeah, I'm trying not to be a person.
Well, let me know. That's great.
Really though, I love you all so much. This was enjoyable. You know, taking calls, it can be a little intimidating, especially because I'm kind of new to this. But thank you so much for having somebody who's like a ride or die over here, who's just old hat, just pounding away. I'm going to take some lessons from you. I'm really going to take some lessons from you. To our callers, you rock. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing your opinions. To everybody in the chat, keeping it breezy. We love you. Just keep supporting us, and we'll keep supporting you, and we're going to keep building this community and making this world a better place, one video at a time. So that's Rion out, and y'all have a good night. We love you. Peace.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.